He was called the Manasa Mauler, but he became one of the most beloved champions in the history of boxing. He was a tiger in the ring, and perhaps the greatest fighter who ever lived. He was Jack Dempsey, the heavyweight champion of the world, who brought boxing into the 20th century and helped make sports a big business. In a series of classic bouts, Dempsey ushered in the era that became known as the golden age of sports. He was idolized by the public wherever he went and was a hero, especially to children. Outside the ring, Dempsey was one of the first sport figures to appear in the movies. He enjoyed the friendship of Hollywood's most famous stars and married a glamorous actress. When his boxing career ended after the controversial long count fight with Gene Tunney, Dempsey remained the idol of millions who always called him the champ.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to have three privileges in the same evening. First, being back in California. Second, this beautiful premiere of this wonderful picture. Third, being the guest of the next heavyweight champion, Max Baer.
In 1919, a tanned, fiercely determined young challenger prepares for his chance at the heavyweight boxing championship of the world. His name is William Harrison Dempsey, who first fights as Kid Blackie due to his dark looks, and then adopts his brother's ring name, Jack Dempsey, when he substitutes for him. At 6 feet 1 1/2 inches in height and weighing 187 pounds at age 24, Dempsey would appear to be at a considerable disadvantage in comparison to the reigning heavyweight champion, Jess Willard, the Great White Hope, who defeated the controversial first black champion, Jack Johnson, in 1916. The Potawatomi Giant from Potawatomi, Kansas, stands 6 feet 6 1/2 inches and weighs 245 pounds, nearly 70 pounds more than Dempsey. Willard's enormous size, strength, and incredible 83-inch reach had been enough to compensate for his lack of skill as a boxer. The Dempsey-Willard Championship match is set for Independence Day, July 4th, 1919, in Toledo, Ohio. The betting odds are in favor of Willard. The fight for the championship belt is the first major sporting event following World War I, and it attracts almost 50,000 spectators. Dempsey says he's downright scared as he's about to face his opponent across the ring. But Willard is so confident, he even asked for legal immunity in case he kills Dempsey accidentally. However, the outcome is determined almost from the opening bell. Early in the fight, Dempsey lands a savage right to the body and left to the cheek that fractures Willard's jaw in 2 places, stunning and dazing the champion for the rest of the bout. Dempsey's style is ferocious and unrelenting, standing over Willard when he's down, intimidating him, and never letting him get up without attacking again. With his constant barrage of blows, dark eyes glaring and teeth bared, he's like a beast of prey in the ring. But Dempsey is literally a born fighter. His mother read a biography of boxer John L. Sullivan while she was carrying him, and dreamt her son would one day follow in Sullivan's footsteps. The big strapping boy quit school at age 15 and learned to fight in the rough mining towns, hobo camps, and bars of the West, where he would announce himself with the challenge, "I can't sing and I can't dance, but I can lick any man in the place." And Dempsey almost always did, earning a reputation for himself and a shot at the championship. This is only the first round, but Willard is already on the ropes as Dempsey continues to pound his opponent with lefts and rights that leave him dazed and cut. By the end of the round, Dempsey is declared the winner, and the newspaper reporters begin to write about a new champion. But as Dempsey leaves the ring in triumph with Willard in painful defeat, the referee, Ollie Pecourt, frantically calls them both back. The timekeeper says the bell had rung on the count of 7. The fight is not over. It lasts for another 2 agonizing rounds, although Willard is bleeding and badly beaten. Dempsey knocks him down 7 times in all. Willard's rib cage is smashed, and he loses 4 teeth, besides suffering a broken jaw and facial cuts. The scorching July temperature stands at 106 degrees, but in 1916, Willard had fought for 26 rounds in over 100-degree heat in Havana, Cuba, to finally beat Jack Johnson for the championship. Now, all he has left is endurance. Finally, even that deserts him. When the bell for the 4th round rings, Willard is unable to answer it, telling the referee, "I cannot continue." The crowd goes wild as the Manasa Mauler becomes the heavyweight champion of the world. Someone later said, no man alive could have beaten Dempsey that day. After the fight, Dempsey sees his name in the headlines and tries to buy a newspaper. The newsboy says, "You don't owe me nothing, champ." Now that Dempsey has become champion, his celebrated Iron Mike right hand is compared to the kick of a mule in this animated cartoon. An apt description for a man who won most of his fights by knockouts. In 1921, legendary sports promoter Tex Rickard, who built Madison Square Garden in New York City, arranges the first $1 million gate in any sport, making boxing big business. Over 93,000 fans jam the stadium in Jersey City to see Jack Dempsey defend his title. But many of them want to see him lose. During World War I, Dempsey had been excused from service due to an early marriage, and the charge of slacker made him unpopular. Now the press and the public, some of who paid $20 to $40 or more for tickets at a time when 25 cents could buy a good meal, are overwhelmingly against him. And Dempsey enters the ring knowing they favor his opponent, Georges Carpentier, the charming, handsome champion from France. When Carpentier arrives for the fight, he is publicized as a military pilot and decorated hero of the war. From the time his boat docks in New York, he captures the public's imagination with his continental accent and style. They call him the Orchid Man, and everyone wants to meet him. Carpentier hobnobs with society, attending lavish parties at Long Island estates, where he dances with the ladies and charms them while he feigns an imitation bout in which he's knocked out. But when Carpentier meets Dempsey in the ring, the joke becomes reality. Almost from the first handshake, Carpentier is outclassed and outweighed. At 172 pounds to Dempsey's 188, Carpentier, a light heavyweight champion, lacks the size to compete with Dempsey or the power. Dempsey punishes him brutally, flooring him for an 8 count in the 4th round. But Carpentier gamely bounds to his feet before Dempsey knocks him out for good. Carpentier may be the crowd's favorite, but his charm and personality are no match for Dempsey in the ring. And the bout is over. Among the crowds watching that day are John D. Rockefeller, Henry Ford, George M. Cohan, and Al Jolson, who make it a social event. After defeating Georges Carpentier, the Manasa Mauler finally catches the public's favor and becomes a hero and the first great sports figure of the Jazz Age, especially to children who follow him wherever he goes. Meeting the champion of the world is a moment they will never forget. And Dempsey enjoys the role of a public figure as he clowns for the cameras. At a time when sports idols are expected to set an example for children, Dempsey becomes a symbol of success and achievement to his young fans. In 1923, Dempsey fights another classic bout when he meets Luis Angel Firpo from Argentina, the wild bull of the Pampas. Firpo is bigger than Dempsey, a hulking 6'3", weighing 230 pounds, with an enormous appetite for food equaled only by his stinginess. He is so cheap that he trains without sparring partners, just so he won't have to pay them. The Dempsey-Firpo fight is set for September 14th, 1923, and Firpo is confident he'll win. A crowd of almost 90,000 starts arriving at New York's Polo Grounds early in the afternoon to see Dempsey defend his title. Promoter Tex Rickard tells Dempsey he's worried that if the champion knocks Firpo out in the first round, the crowd won't feel they're getting their money's worth. But Dempsey takes Firpo seriously. He knows Firpo is bigger than Carpentier and can hit a lot harder. When they meet in the ring, although the match lasts only 3 minutes and 57 seconds, a little over 1 round, Firpo is a tough opponent. In the first round, although Firpo was knocked down 7 times by Dempsey, he continues to get up. Dempsey knows Firpo is still in the fight when he finally lands a blow near the end of the round that sends Dempsey flying through the ropes and onto the typewriters of the sports reporters at ringside. Immortalized in this famous painting by George Bellows. When the fight continues in the second round, Dempsey flattens Firpo for the 9th time for a count of 4. The wild bull of the Pampas is now a Ferdinand at the hands of Jack Dempsey. Finally, the champion floors Firpo for the referee's count, and the fight is over. This is the last time for 3 years that Jack Dempsey will defend his title. Instead, he decides to become a Hollywood movie star. In the 1920s, the movie capital is like a modern El Dorado, a boom town where fame and fortune can be found overnight if you're lucky. Motion picture theaters such as Grauman's Egyptian are opulent movie palaces where showmanship is the style of the day. Hollywood is synonymous with ballyhoo, and Jack Dempsey is ready to let the movie capital publicize his fame as a boxer when he signs to appear in a serial that will utilize his athletic abilities, the Daredevil Jack series for Warner Brothers Studios, who hope to turn the young champion into a major movie star. Dempsey learns to do his own makeup with an assist from Lon Chaney, the man of 1,000 faces, who becomes his friend. In most of these roles, Dempsey plays an athletic hero who's called on to rescue a heroine and to fight the villain. They also feature some of the worst acting ever seen on American screens, according to one critic. There were other sports figures who appeared in the movies and failed, such as the immortal baseball hero Babe Ruth, who struck out on the screen. But their appeal was strictly as athletes. They weren't actors and didn't pretend to be. But Dempsey and Ruth weren't the first athletes to appear in pictures. This primitive motion picture device from the 1890s features an earlier boxing champion, gentleman Jim Corbett on the right, fighting a staged exhibition bout for the camera. But it takes more than athletic skill to become a movie star. You have to have talent and personality, like Douglas Fairbanks Sr., who also had remarkable athletic skills, or Charlie Chaplin, who combined dexterity and superb physical timing to become the most popular comedian in the world. His ability to get laughs from props was something no athlete could imitate, although Chaplin had many imitators himself, like the very young Harold Lloyd. Before he became famous as the man with the glasses, he dressed like Chaplin, copied his movements and makeup, and tried to capitalize on his success. Dempsey admires them all, but he is more successful off-screen than on. When Dempsey meets an attractive actress named Estelle Taylor, he marries her on February 7, 1925. Here they share a table with Rudolph Valentino at the time when Dempsey is coaching the great lover for the movie Cobra. But his movie career has gone into low gear, except for newsreel appearances. The boxing champion of the world is no longer considered a Hollywood heavyweight, and he returns to his first love, boxing. Meanwhile, a new challenger is taking the championship more seriously. Gene Tunney, at 29, 2 years younger than Dempsey, and weighing 192 pounds. Tunney is a former Marine who keeps himself in top condition, hoping to win the title. On the other hand, Dempsey tries to pick up where he left off 3 years earlier, but he's obviously grown rusty. 3 years away from the fight game is too long for anyone, and Dempsey is no exception. The two meet on September 23, 1926 in Philadelphia under a driving rain before a record 120,000 spectators. Tunney is rated an 11-5 underdog, but from the outset, it's clear Dempsey's famed rushes are gone, along with his speed and ferocity. Tunney had fought a preliminary bout at the Dempsey-Carpentier match and made a scientific study of Dempsey's style ever since, detecting flaws that would enable him to win. The fight lasts 10 rounds, and Dempsey only wins 2. Now it's Gene Tunney who's hailed as the new champ. Dempsey loses gracefully, offering no excuses other than telling his wife, "Honey, I just forgot to duck." Tunney's an equally graceful winner, and the crowd gives him a hero's welcome. The king is dead. Long live the king. Dempsey considers a rematch with Tunney, But first, he fights a warm-up bout against Jack Sharkey to test his skills on July 21st, 1927 at Yankee Stadium. The same year, Babe Ruth hit 60 home runs there. 80,000 fans come to see Dempsey make a comeback. But they're disappointed for the first 6 rounds. Sharkey is overconfident, and Dempsey knows his punches lack the power they once did. By the 7th round, Dempsey says Sharkey gave me living hell. He was as good as any fighter I'd ever seen. I thought he was going to knock me out. Dempsey launches one last attack out of desperation. Sharkey has begun to run out of steam, and Dempsey's blows start to land with effect. Unfortunately, several of them appear to be low, below the belt, as Sharkey tries to tie up Dempsey's famous left in a clinch. Sharkey hangs on, but when he starts to complain to the referee, he drops his guard and exposes his chin. Dempsey connects solidly, sending Sharkey to the canvas for a count of 10. Later, he says, "What was I going to do? Write him a letter of apology?" The way is now clear for the rematch with Gene Tunney, one of the most famous fights in boxing history. On September 22nd, 1927, at Soldiers Field, Chicago, 105,000 spectators pay the first $2 million gate to see Dempsey try to regain his title. For the first 6 rounds, Tunney and Dempsey repeat their previous encounter, with Tunney using his scientific approach to boxing and Dempsey losing badly on points. Dempsey knows this is his last chance to regain the championship, and he sees it slipping away from him. In the 7th round, however, just as he had in the Sharkey fight, Dempsey comes alive. He manages to land his iron Mike right and follows it with a powerful left hook that stuns Tunney, sending him crashing into the ropes. But then, Dempsey makes a fatal mistake. Instead of retiring to a neutral corner as the rules dictate, Dempsey stands over Tunney, delaying the count. No one knows how many seconds elapse before Dempsey finally obeys the referee, giving Tunney invaluable time to recover before the count finally begins. The neutral corner rule resulted from Dempsey's bout with Firpo, following the confusion when Dempsey was knocked out of the ring. But in his moment of seeming victory, Dempsey forgets the new rules and gives Tunney a well-needed advantage.
Yes, I was down. I heard the referee count 2. I knew I had to get up, which was part of my professional obligation. But what to do when I got up was the important thing. I decided to stay away from Jack, and it was a very wise decision, as the results showed. In spite of the fact that I was hit 7 times in succession in the 7th round in my contest with Jack Dempsey for the World's Heavyweight Championship, was one of my luckiest nights. As a matter of fact, the luckiest night of my life.
Well, my thoughts wasn't hoping he would ever get up, but unfortunately he did, and won the fight, and more power to him. A great boy and a great champion.
There were many champions who became larger-than-life heroes in the era that was known as the Golden Age of Sports in the 1920s. In football, there were the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame, headed by quarterback Red Grange, who later became a movie star, just like swimmer Johnny Weissmuller, who played Tarzan in a long-running series of pictures after winning several gold medals in the 1928 Olympics. Other sporting greats of the day were the legendary Bobby Jones, winner of the Grand Slam in golf. Helen Wills Moody, Little Miss Poker Face, who won Wimbledon 4 years in a row from 1927 to 1930, seen here with French rival Suzanne Langland. And the Sultan of SWAT, Babe Ruth. After Dempsey retires, he and his wife divorce in 1931. The same year, she makes this early talkie.
I often think it's a shame that people don't seem able to live together in peace and quiet without making each other miserable.
Well, what I say is, you get married for better or for worse. And if it turns out for the worse, well, all you can do is make the best of it.
I think the trouble is that people don't make allowances. They don't seem to realize that everybody wants a kind word now and then.
Dempsey may have given up on marriage, but he doesn't give up on show business. In 1933, he attends a movie premiere with a rising young contender named Max Baer. He and Dempsey come to Hollywood when Baer stars in a movie called the prize fighter and the lady at MGM. And Dempsey is cast in a supporting role.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to have three privileges the same evening. First, being back in California. Second, this beautiful premiere of this wonderful picture. Third, being the guest of the next heavyweight champion, Max Baer. You know, Max is out here making a picture, and they say he's a great actor. I don't know much about his lovemaking, but I know he's the third gentleman in and out of the ring and one of the greatest fighters of his chosen profession. Thank you very much.
Baer is a clown and a performer, as well as a top-notch boxer. His rubber legs trick during sparring is a cameraman's delight. But he never takes his career seriously enough to become a top-notch champion like Dempsey, who never lets himself or the public down in or out of the ring. For the rest of his life, Jack Dempsey remains the grand old man of boxing. He opens a restaurant in New York City bearing his name that becomes a popular Broadway landmark and favorite of world-famous celebrities. Dempsey's is the scene of star-studded tributes to show business personalities, like this salute to bandleader Paul Whiteman.
It gives me great pleasure to present to you this wonderful song. We wish you every good success, not only for 20 years more, but for 120 to come. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Dempsey's restaurant remains a Broadway landmark for 36 years until it closes in 1975, shortly before Dempsey's death. But its owner will always be remembered for his fierce style in the ring that won him the championship at age 24, for his classic bouts that brought boxing into the modern era and made it a big business, as well as his outstanding reputation as a sports figure, along with his former opponent, Gene Tunney. For many, Jack Dempsey will always be the greatest of them all.